Want to get it?
Yep.
All right. Honor never grows old, and honor rejoices the heart of age. It does so because honor is, finally, about defending those noble and worthy things that deserve defending, even if it comes at a high cost. In our time, that may mean social disapproval, public scorn, hardship, persecution, or, as always, even death itself. The question remains, what is worth defending? What is worth dying for? What is worth living for? William J. Bennett, in a lecture to the United States Naval Academy, November 24th, 1997.
Oh, I was still in.
Huh. Okay. So this is really relevant to you then.
Right. And Marine's part of the Navy, so that was directed at me. Personally.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. One Vietnam veteran, an old retired colonel, once said this to me. Most of the people in our society are sheep. They are kind, gentle, productive creatures who can only hurt one another by accident. This is true. Remember, the murder rate is 6 per 100,000 per year, and the aggravated assault rate is 4 per 1,000 per year. What this means is that the vast majority of Americans are not inclined to hurt one another. Some estimates say that 2 million Americans are victims of violent crimes every year, a tragic, staggering number, perhaps an all-time high record rate of violent crime. But there are almost 300 million Americans. Obviously, there's like 335 now.
Right.
So this is,
Right.
But there are almost 300 million Americans, which means that the odds of being a victim of violent crime is considerably less than 1 in 100 on any given year. Furthermore, since many violent crimes are committed by repeat offenders, the actual number of violent crimes citizens is considerably less than 2 million. Although that's probably true where violent criminals are less than 2 million. However, 4% of the population at any time is a psychopath. And so that's about 12 million. So that doesn't mean that they're violent, but that doesn't mean that they're fucking nuts.
Right. I'm surprised it's only 4%.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no. You know what? You found what?
They found something that to prolong their sanity until they strike. So they found a diversion. That's all it means.
Coping method.
Right,
exactly.
Thus, there is a paradox, and we must grasp both ends of the situation. We may well be in the most violent times in history, but violence is still remarkably rare. This is because most citizens are kind, decent people who are not capable of hurting each other, except by accident or under extreme provocation. They are sheep. I mean nothing negative by calling them sheep. To me, it is like the pretty blue robin's egg. Inside it is a soft and gooey, but someday will grow into something beautiful. But the egg cannot survive without its hard blue shell. Police officers, soldiers, and other warriors are like that shell. And someday, the civilization they protect will grow into something wonderful. For now, though, they need warriors to protect them from predators. Then there are wolves, the old war veteran said, and the wolves feed on the sheep without mercy. Do you believe there are wolves out who will feed on? Do you believe that there are wolves out there that will feed on the flock without mercy? You better believe it. There are evil men in this world, and they are capable of evil deeds. The moment you forget that or pretend it is not so, you become a sheep. There is no safety in denial. And then there are sheepdogs. Oh, go ahead.
No, I thought you were done. I was just going to say that, and the funny thing is really we're living in the safest time in the world's history.
In the world's history, right?
Yeah,
we are, but it's still extremely violent.
It's still extremely violent, yeah.
And that's the thing that like people don't understand. Like we are in the least violent time ever. When's the last like major war that there was? I mean, we've been in war for 19 years, but when's the last major war there was?
Right.
You know,
World War II.
I mean, yeah, 44 people get killed every fucking year, or it's 44 people every day in the United States get murdered. It's pretty bad. It's pretty brutal. But even so, compared to the 330 million people, it's almost nothing.
All right. I'm just thinking of the times where you had to look out for highwaymen, and like there was just like if you were a farmer in the middle of nowhere, you could just be pillaged and nobody would even know that it occurred. Let alone like have some police head the investigation, held somebody accountable.
And that was everywhere at every time in history, every quarter of the planet, until about probably 75 years ago. When you think about The history of the earth is violent and horrible.
Yeah.
Then there are sheepdogs, he went on, and I'm a sheepdog. I live to protect the flock and confront the wolf. If you have no capacity for violence, then you are a healthy, productive citizen, a sheep. If you have a capacity for violence and no empathy for your fellow citizens, then you have defined an aggressive sociopath, a wolf. But what if you have a capacity for violence and a deep love for your fellow citizens? What do you have then? A sheepdog, a warrior, someone who is walking the hero's path, someone who can walk into the heart of darkness, into the universal human phobia, and walk out unscathed. Let me expand on this old soldier's excellent model of the sheep, wolves, and sheepdogs. We know that the sheep live in denial. That is what makes them sheep. They do not want to believe that their world is evil, that there is evil in the world. They can accept the fact that fires can happen, which is why they want fire extinguishers, fire sprinklers, fire alarms, and fire exits throughout their kids' schools. But many of them are outraged at the idea of putting an armed officer in their kids' school. Our children are thousands of times more likely to be killed or seriously injured by school violence than fire, but the sheep's only response to the possibility of violence is denial. The idea of someone coming to kill or harm their child is just too hard, and so they choose the path of denial. The sheep generally do not like the sheepdog. He looks a lot like a wolf. He has fangs and the capacity for violence. The difference, though, is that the sheepdog must not, cannot, and will not ever harm the sheep. Any sheepdog who intentionally harms the lowliest little lamb will be punished and removed. The world cannot work any other way, at least not in a representative democracy or a republic such as ours. Still, the sheepdog disturbs the sheep. He is a constant reminder that there are wolves in the land. They would prefer that he didn't tell them where to go, or give them traffic tickets, or stand at the ready in airports in camouflage fatigues holding an M16. The sheep would much rather have the sheepdog cash in his fangs, spray paint himself white, and go, bah, until the wolf shows up. Then the entire flock tries desperately to hide behind the lowly sheepdog. Like I said, this is long, but it's worth it, though. A lot of people heard the Sheepdog Story because it was famous from, it got famous in the American Sniper movie about Chris Kyle.
Right.
A few years back, and that even caused big controversy. But they only talk about the story. They don't read the whole thing from the excerpt from this. The students, the victims of Columbine High, were big, tough high school students, and under ordinary circumstances, they would not have had the time of day for a police officer. They were not bad kids. They just had nothing to say to a cop. When the school was under attack, however, and SWAT teams were clearing the rooms and hallways, the officers had to physically peel those clinging Saba kids off of them. This is how the little lambs feel about their sheepdog when the wolf is at the door. Look at what happened after September 11th, 2001, when the wolf pounded hard on the door. Remember how America, more than ever before, felt differently about their law enforcement officers and military personnel? Remember how many times you heard the word hero? Understand that there's nothing morally superior about being a sheepdog. It is just what you choose to be. Also understand that a sheepdog is a funny critter. He is always sniffing around on the perimeter, checking the breeze, barking at things that go bump in the night, and yearning for a righteous battle. That is, the young sheepdogs yearn for a righteous battle. The old sheepdogs are a little wiser and older and wiser, but they move to the sound of the guns when needed right along with the young ones. Here's how the sheep and the sheepdog think differently. The sheep pretend the wolf will never come, but the sheepdog lives for that day. After the attacks on September 11, 2001, most of the sheep, that is, most citizens in America, said, "Thank God I wasn't on one of those planes." The sheepdogs, the warriors, said, "Dear God, I wish I could have been on one of those planes. Maybe I could have made a difference." When you're truly transformed into a warrior and have truly invested yourself into warriorhood, you want to be there. You want to be able to make a difference. There's nothing morally superior about being a sheepdog, the warrior, but he does have one real advantage, only one. And that is that he is able to survive and thrive in an environment that destroys 98% of the population. There was research conducted a few years ago with individuals convicted of violent crimes. These cons were imprisoned for serious predatory crimes of violence, assaults, murders, and killing law enforcement officers. The vast majority said that they specifically targeted victims by body language, slump to walk, passive behavior, a lack of awareness. They chose their victims like big cats do in Africa, when they select one out of the herd that is least able to protect itself. Some people may be destined to be sheep, and others might be genetically primed to be wolves or sheepdogs. But I believe that most people can choose which one they want to be. And I'm proud to say that more and more Americans are choosing to become sheepdogs. Obviously, now this is it's long. There's still like 2 or 3 more pages of this, but I'm painting a picture here for a reason. A lot has changed since 9/11, when people were ready to go out there and at least do their part to be, sheepdogs, to protect and defend. And now, that's evil. Even the mindset of that's evil. How dare you? 7 months after the attack on September 11th, 2001, Todd Beamer was honored in his hometown of Cranberry, New Jersey. Todd, as you recall, was the man on Flight 93 over Pennsylvania who called in a cell phone to alert an operator from United Airlines about the hijacking. When he learned of the other 3 passengers' planes that had been used as weapons, Todd dropped his phone and uttered the words, "Let's go," which authorities believe was a signal to the other passengers to confront the terrorist hijackers. In 1 hour, a transformation occurred among the passengers, athletes, business people, and parents, from sheep to sheepdogs, and together they fought the wolves, ultimately saving an unknown number of lives on the ground. There's no safety for honest men, except by believing all possible evil of evil men. Edmund Burke. Here's the point I like to emphasize, especially to the thousands of police officers and soldiers I speak to each year. In nature, the sheep, real sheep, are born as sheep. Sheepdogs were born that way, and so are wolves. They didn't have a choice. But you are not a critter. As a human being, you could be whatever you want to be. It is a conscious moral decision. If you want to be a sheep, then you could be a sheep, and that's okay. But you must understand the price you pay. When the wolf comes, you and your loved ones are going to die. And if there's not a sheepdog there to protect you. If you want to be a wolf, you can be one. But the sheepdogs are going to hunt you down and kill you wherever you go. You'll never have rest, safety, trust, or love. But if you want to be a sheepdog and walk the warrior's path, then you must make a conscious and moral decision every day to dedicate, equip, and prepare yourself to thrive in that toxic, corrosive moment when the wolf comes knocking on the door. For examples, many officers carry their weapons in church. They are well concealed in ankle holsters, shoulder holsters, and inside the belt holsters tucked into the small of their backs. Anytime you go to some form of religious service, there's a very good chance that a police officer in your congregation is carrying. You will never know if there's an individual in your place of worship until the wolf appears to massacre you and your loved ones.
I've actually seen it.
And
he made a mistake and let it be seen, but it was a guy that was like, we're at the synagogue. We're there. It's like kids' day or whatever. And the sheepdog was there.
In the 70s, my father was a sky marshal. So it was his job to be on the plane, undercover, inconspicuous, in case a terrorist hijacker tried to take over the plane, at which point he would shoot him. So, there are people, that's just the mindset that they have, and all the time they're in that way, and you're trained to be, and you have to be. But you notice all the problems that we have with mass shooters, every single one of them, there's not a variation, or all soft targets where somebody's not there with a gun,
right,
with a firearm. Nobody's prepared to fight the wolf in any of these places, and that's when it always happens. I was training a group of police officers in Texas during the break. One asked his friend if he carried his weapon to church. The other cop replied, "I will never be caught without my gun in church." I asked why he felt so strongly about this, and he told me about a cop he knew who was at a church massacre in Fort Worth, Texas in 1999. In that incident, a mentally deranged individual came into the church and opened fire, gunning down 14 people. He said that the officer believed he could have saved every life that day if he had been carrying his gun. His own son was shot, and all he could do was throw himself on the boy's body and wait to die. That cop looked at me in the eye and said, "Do you have any idea how hard it would be to live with yourself after that?" Some individuals would be horrified if they knew this police officer was carrying a weapon in church. They might call him paranoid and would probably scorn him. Yet these individuals would be enraged and would call for heads to roll if they found out that the airbags in their cars were defective, or that the fire extinguisher and sprinklers of their kids' school did not work. They can accept the fact that fires and traffic accidents can happen, and there must be safeguards against them. Their only response to a wolf, though, is denial. And all too often, their response to the sheepdog is scorn and disdain. But the sheepdog quietly asks himself, do you have any idea how hard it would be to live with yourself if your loved ones were attacked and killed, and you had to stand there helplessly because you were unprepared for that day? Now, for me, as a man, that is absolutely my biggest fear. That is my biggest fear, that I don't step up in that moment.
Right. Right. And the thing is that you can probably ask a lot of people and they won't understand. Like if I were to say that there are times that I go through situations in my head. All right, we're in the grocery store. Where's this thing? What if somebody comes in over here? And it's like, well, what's the Boy Scout motto? Be prepared.
Yeah. Right. Be prepared.
And it's funny, there's a reason for that. I think you'll find like kids that go to the Boy Scouts, I think probably from the general population, a higher percentage of them go on to be like, you know, police officers and firefighters and things like that.
I forget what this statistic is, but there's something about being an Eagle Scout, specifically being an Eagle Scout, that people that reach the level of Eagle Scout go to like, I mean, their success rate in the world in general is an astronomical rate. And it makes sense. I mean, these are the MacGyvers of the world. These are the people that go out and fucking cut their life out of the wilderness and have the ability to do that and the wherewithal to keep their head about it to do that. You know, that's industrialness, and you need that. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've thought to myself, like, you train and you do things and you keep a mentality like 100%, like all the time, in case that 1 in a million chance happens. But what if you did it 99 out of 100, but you didn't on the 100th time?
Right.
All the other 99 don't matter. So you've got to be like 100%, which is why I keep going back and conflicting. Like I should already have like I should have my concealed carry permit at this point, and it should always be somewhere, so that if that 1 in a million chance
I've got to get,
I can save my family.
Yeah.
It might seem absurd.
I've got to get mine.
That's ridiculous. Like, why would you do that for like some crazy well, because of that one time that it might.
Because the one time that it might, and you're not prepared. And well, it is denial that turns people into sheep. Sheep are psychologically destroyed by combat because their only defense is denial, which is counterproductive and destructive, resulting in fear, helplessness, and horror when the wolf shows up. Denial kills you twice. It kills you once at your moment of truth, when you're not physically prepared. You didn't bring your gun. You didn't train. Your only defense was wishful thinking. Hope is not a strategy. Denial kills you a second time because even if you do physically survive, you're psychologically shattered by your fear and helplessness and horror at the moment of your truth. Gavin de Becker puts it like this in Fear Less, his superb post 9/11 book, which should be required reading for anyone trying to come to terms with our current world situation. Denial can be seductive, but it has an insidious side effect. For all the peace of mind deniers think they get by saying it isn't so, the fall they take when faced with new violence is all the more unsettling. Denial is a save now, pay later scheme, a contract written entirely in small print. For in the long run, the denying person knows the truth on some level. And so the warrior must strive to confront denial in all aspects of his life and prepare himself for the day when evil comes. If you are a warrior who is legally authorized to carry a weapon and you step outside without that weapon, then you become a sheep, pretending the bad man will not come today. No one can be on 24/7 for a lifetime. Everyone needs downtime. But if you're authorized to carry a weapon and you walk outside without it, just take a deep breath and say this to yourself. Bah.
I was really drilled into us when we were in training. You never went anywhere else. You didn't go and take a piss without it. And then for the hapless soul that did, it was like, drill instructor was like, where's your weapon? Oh, what are you doing there, recruit? You're freaking dead, recruit. Oh,
Well, yeah,
freaking crazy.
You're useless without your weapon.
Right. It's Rifleman's Creed.
Well, I mean, this business of being a sheep or a sheepdog is not a yes-no dichotomy. It's not an all or nothing, either or choice. It is a matter of degrees, a continuum. And this is an important thing with this last paragraph. On one end is an abject, headed in the sand sheep, and on the other end is the ultimate warrior. Few people exist completely on one end or the other. Most of us live somewhere in between. Since 9/11, almost everyone in America took a step up that continuum, away from denial. The sheep took a few steps towards accepting and appreciating their warriors, and the warriors started taking their job more seriously. The degree to which you move up that continuum, away from sheephood and denial, is the degree to which you and your loved ones will survive, physically and psychologically, at your moment of truth. Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman served for 24 years as a soldier, infantryman, and Army Ranger. He was a psychology professor at West Point and the author of On Killing, The Psychological Cost of Learning to Kill in War and Society. That's because that is now a book that is United States Marine Corps Commandant's required material. It's required reading for Marine Corps. He was
the guy that talked about, like, back in the day, they had to go lie on the line and actually tell people to shoot when it was time to shoot. Because they apparently weren't capable of realizing they had to turn and shoot.
His book his research is the first ever research done on the act of killing for that book. And the guy, and they tried when this came out, when it got big after the American Sniper movie came out, a lot of people like Michael Moore tried to destroy it. But this guy's legit. His book became standard at military schools. You know what I mean? That doesn't just happen unless you know what the fuck you're talking about.
Right. It's legit.
Yeah, it's legit. Now, the thing is, the reason why I brought this up, okay, because most people have heard that already by now, specifically now you hear that. And after 9/11, you guys remember 9/11, everybody was like, everybody was ready to do at least their little part, at least fucking do a little bit more than be a sheep at that point. And now we have toxic masculinity. Now, I normally, and I don't want to even get political in this. This is more serious of a tone than we normally take. However, what brought this on is that the other day, I have a 2-year-old son, I have a 5-year-old daughter, and a 2-year-old son. Scotty, you have a son and a daughter. I'm all for the empowerment of women. I think it's great. I have 5 sisters. I have 6 nieces. I'm all for that, right? However, go on Netflix and try to find a show for a young boy. You can't fucking find one. There is not a show on Netflix. There's not a cartoon, any of that's geared for a young boy. The ones that are boy shows, like the superhero stuff, they do their damnedest to make sure there's equal representation between boys and girls. There's as many girl superheroes as there are boy superheroes. But there's all these girly shows and nothing for boys. Then I go to Walmart the other day. My daughter had a birthday party. She's in kindergarten. She had a birthday party for a boy. I went to go find a toy for this kid. There is 3 aisles of girl toys. We went to Target. We went to Walmart. Toys R Us isn't around anymore. But we went to Target. We went to Walmart. We went to BJ's. We went to 5 different stores. 3 aisles of girls' toys. 1 aisle of boy toys. And the boys' toys were wiped out. Not even any action figures left.
I don't do a lot of in-store shopping. It's online, so I don't think I'd actually notice that.
It's I didn't really notice it until the other day when I ended up in Barnes and Noble having to buy the kid a fucking book.
Huh.
Yeah, some 5-year-old wants a book for his birthday. Real fucking fun there, huh?
Well, the good news is in a sense that because we are in the information age, there's still
say that today.
Huh? What I think we have technical problems.
No, go ahead. But
you can some of the stuff is available from say quote unquote back in the day. You know, so in a sense you can sort of find things, but gosh, for the TV shows, I couldn't. You're right. I don't know that I necessarily looked for anything specifically that was like boy related. It was just, I mean, I think my kids are a little bit older, and so they sort of seek the things that they like. And
at this point now, right? But
yeah,
it would like
he finds stuff, but like I don't know, when they were younger.
it's like it's really you. It really when you're looking for stuff for your young boy to be able to do, it's like fucking stark how what the difference is, and they've done a lot to empower girls over the last 30 years, and it's all come at the expense of boys. Now that's why there's a couple of things. Now I talk about we were talking about the entire, and that was a big long speech to read. Now, my father, I come from a military family. I come from a family of cops. My father was in the Marines. He was also Sky Marshal when he got out of the Marines. One of my sisters was in the Air Force. Another of my sisters was on the NYPD for 25 years. So I come from there. Now, I took the first police test where you had to have 60 college credits. If I had taken the test a month earlier, I would have been on the job. I would probably be retired now also. And as for my father just wouldn't let me join the Marines. When I graduated high school, I was 17, and he watched his best friend get killed in Vietnam. He wasn't going to do it, But I have been. Go ahead.
I said it was a wise choice because you might have been in when like 9/11 hit, and who would have known,
I would have been. Well, that would have been around 95. I would have been Somalia, maybe the only thing that would have been in.
You still might have been in it because.
If I was still in the military, yeah.
Right,
if I would
like
still
if you made a career out of it, yeah.
Which now the case. Because whole life, baseball. I coached football for 7 years. I was karate. I took karate, martial arts, like every day, like years straight, 5 years straight, trained every day. So for me, it's always been about discipline and controlled violence. The kind of things that they're exactly talking about. I used to get the fist fights every single fucking day until I was like 17 years old. Like literally, I got this fist fight every day until I was 16 because I was 4 feet tall, and you can't be 4 feet tall in New York. Not then. That's when people are getting stabbed for $1. Not then. You couldn't. So like I'm kind of a fucking caveman. Like I've been told, Walton's heard this one before. They called me the manimal because they like I'm so manly I can't be molded. That's what I've been told that straight out, right? Like I'm some kind of a fucking animal. But to me, this is what men act like, because you have to at least be ready to act when it's time to be the gorilla and bound on your chest. That's what we're made for. We're built for that, right? To the point where every single sport, I'm a sports guy, every single sport out there, sports comes from war simulation. It comes from war games. That's what sports originated from. One of my courses, I had to take a sociology of sport, and that's literally every single sport is a war simulation. It's a war game.
Right, that's why you have like teams and formations and plans, strategy,
right?
Battle plans.
They're all battle plans, right?
When you look at the things, it's similar to how you would do it if there was an actual combat.
And right, the actual combat skills, hitting a target while you're moving with a stick, things like that. So they're all combat related. Even basketball.
Oh yeah.
Trying to physically manipulate your opponent and get around him to strike the target with a projectile.
Right, and putting your teammates in the correct position to give you that advantage to get to the inside, because it all comes about you want to get this thing to a certain point. All of it involves like getting through the other team to the point where, like, if it was a military thing, you would have gained your objective.
Right. So that's what all of it comes from. So we are like inundated with specifically,
except for golf.
Well, but even then, golf is. I used to. I go back and forth with golf as a sport.
Well, that's the support side of it. That's like the artillery guys.
I tend to think that golf is not a sport because there's no defense, right? But it is a game where you are playing yourself. So in a sense, it's the ultimate, mind fuck. even the greatest in the world, they it's
right, just like runners and like effectively like track and field where there is no defense. You're trying to outscore the other guy, but like they can't do anything to affect your outcome. You just have to do the best that you can.
Right. You're still, no matter what, you're running against yourself. They just happen to be there. Although there is a thing, like I'm like this. Horses tend to be like this. There's some people that when they're just running for the sake of running, don't run very fast. But if there's a reason to run, like I'm going to beat you, their competition level. In horse racing, they call that heart. That's called the animal's heart. They refuse to lose a race. So there are some people like for me, I'm not terribly fast until there's a ball in there and then I'm chasing it. Then I can get there. I'm surprised how quickly I can move once the ball's in the air. I'm not terribly fast though. It just happens. But this whole toxic masculinity thing. Now they had on the stats on the State of the Union last night. Not to get political, but just using the stats. 58% of new jobs went to women. They had a whole gaggle where they're cheering on all the women, and it's great. I'm all for it, but it comes at the expense of who?
Men.
Now, what's going to happen when you need a sheepdog? All of a sudden, because the world is still not a nice place. There's still horrible things that go on there. The other day, MS-13 guy killed somebody right on a train platform, right by on a train where I used to get off. It's like right down the block from the mall. Right where we went to high school.
Yeah. It was another
right in the middle of the day. Bang. Yeah, gangbangers right in the middle of the day, and that shit happens. It's out there. But is the idea that being masculine is tied somehow to toxicity? He gave plenty of examples of toxic masculinity. ISIS terrorists is toxic masculinity. The radical Muslims that blow shit up is toxic masculinity, fucking taking hordes of women and raping them and stuff like that. That's toxic masculinity.
Yeah, it's primal. It's primal.
But like, how is it? Now throughout the history of the world, and this is what Peterson talks about this all the time. First, he says that being harmless is not noble. There's no nobility in being harmless. A rabbit isn't noble. Like rabbits. A rabbit is designed that if it gets scared, it'll drop dead.
Yeah, those things die if you keep them in captivity.
Yeah, because they're designed to die. Right. Because they're designed to be breeding stock. Like we talked 2 weeks ago about framing things, like the animals in the farms that the farm fresh with marketing.
Yeah,
and how they were making a big thing about these animals that are farmed the way that they are because it's cruel and everything. But these animals wouldn't be there if it wasn't to feed people. The rabbit, the reason why they're fucking like rabbits, breeding like rabbits, is because rabbits breed so that other animals can eat them. They're designed so rather than suffer when they get scared, they just die, and now something else has a meal. Sheep are made to be eaten by the wild animals, by the predators. Right. They're made to be eaten. That's what they're there for. That's what they're designed for. People are not the same way. We're not designed for that. We're not designed to be sheep. We're not designed to roll over and die. You are designed to protect yourself against the world. So where is it that like that became toxic, and like how is it like what do you do in the face of that when you do have to be a man? Have you any of you have ever known a woman that's gotten with a guy who's a fucking momo and
No.
You know what I mean?
Short answer, no.
The good women want the good men. They don't want the fucking momo.
What's a momo? Sorry.
How do you describe what a momo is? I don't even have the words to describe a momo. I mean, you kind of know it when you see it. I guess a momo isn't so much isn't even a beta male.
Yeah, it's I was just gonna say it's not even a beta male. It's more like a delta male.
Yeah.
Mega. Well, there was at one point where I liked this girl so much that I was quote unquote super nice to her, and at one point she was saying, like, I don't know how to put the words to it without coming off in a weird way, but it was kind of true. She was basically saying, like, I need a guy who's like gonna be a guy, like who's gonna act like a guy. And it was weird for me thinking about that because you sort of get taught in some respects, it's supposed to be different. But I've lost relationships because I try to be too nice.
Gentlemen.
Yeah. I remember there's something that stuck with me where
I wonder how much that you know how the chick's going after the bad boy, right? I wonder how much that is genetically is like evolution, is psychology, evolutionary psychology, where because the bad boy is the guy who's going to get dirty, he's the guy who's going to like be the one to stand up and protect and be the sheepdog.
Right. It's safety. They're not looking at like from an economic standpoint. Like, is he going to be the most successful money guy to bring in funds for our household? But if we're out on the street and some animal tries to like kill me as a woman, this is going to be my best option.
Yeah, and I wonder if agreeableness, specifically the agreeableness trait, is something that you are. The more the more bad boy you're going to be, at least in regard to them, So I wonder if the agreeableness is a trigger on that, because you don't really care what they have to say, which means you're going to do what you need to do when you need to do it. You're going to take care of business when it's necessary.
Right.
And I wonder if it is an animal trigger, like that fucking guy. Yeah, that's the animal right there. Let me see his animal.
Right. Yeah, the security part of it is because back in the old days, the guys brought home the bacon, so to speak. They brought home the food. They went out, they hunted, they came back. They, brought the meat, that the family was going to eat, and and then over, hundreds of thousands of years, it's become, on more of a sublimated level, it's become, if you make this much money, if you drive that car, then that's a sign of, okay,
that's
this
a new
person
providership.
is secure. Yes, so
Right.
This person is gonna make sure that I'm secure, that I will be able to take care of the kid, take care of the babies,
The thing with that too is that, like, and the social dynamics of all that too, right? The truth of the matter is, like, for the big myth, because all these things are psychologically programmed, that you have triggers that set this stuff off, for that make you do this, that you don't even realize are happening, right? But for all the myth of the toxic masculinity oppressing of women, right? And I try to explain this to my wife all the time, because she's a woman, she doesn't really know history like I do. But like, you think about the conditions of life every time before even just straight the birth control pill, right? So, okay, maybe women were oppressed. Maybe they were controlled, maybe they were controlled, right? But maybe they were property. But if that's the truth, if they were property, they were passed and traded by their family to the people that were on the upper levels. They were based, if they were commodities, they are the most valuable commodity that has ever existed in the history of the world.
Correct.
Because you had to be extremely successful in order to have a family. In order to have a wife, you had to be able to support her and their children. In gentlemen societies and the higher societies, you had to support the family too. Marrying you, me giving you my daughter, meant that you are going to be responsible for taking care of me and my wife when we're old and feeble.
Yeah, and that's why, like, there's even cultures today. I think, like, when you look in, I don't know, like Afghanistan or something like that, I can't remember. It was even okay to have more than one wife, but their society dictated that you took care of each one of those so that they all had the same. Like, you had to be super successful if you wanted to have two wives, because both of them had to have the same standard as living.
Right.
And Utah with the Mormons with the multiple wives in Mormonhood, it was the same thing in the 1800s in Utah. It was brutal. Life was brutal, and it wasn't who was going out to defend people. It was the men. who was doing the hard work, the dangerous work? It was the men. That's still the case today. Men do all the dangerous jobs. They're the ones that die in war. They're the ones that go out exploring. They're the ones, they're the ones that are doing the physical work of the farming. They're they're doing all that shit, all the dangerous shit. They're taking it on. If this woman has kids and her husband dies, they're fucked. Their whole lives are over. The kids are dead. She's dead. That husband is what is keeping them alive. So if he's not there anymore, somebody has to be able to take them on. So now, like it used to be originally, if like I have a younger brother, if he's not married and I die, then he would marry my wife and take care of my children.
Right, yeah.
But if he was married in Utah, he would still marry my wife and take care of my children, and they would have 2 wives.
He'd be a polygamist.
Yep. And that's how it was, because life was violent. It was horrible forever. But like, women were okay. They were oppressed, but they were taken care of. Most men did not have families. Most men could not afford to have families. Most men had to do the most dangerous shit in the world just so they could have a chance at a dream one day to hope to have a woman.
Or like save a bit to have a prostitute for a bit.
Right. To save a bit to have the same woman that everyone else he knew had.
Right. But, there's that biological imperative. You still have that drive.
Well, you have to, right.
And so that's part of, and I think these questions come too. It's sort of a weird tangent, but, why is it that prostitution is not legal, when I think that would solve some problems? You want to talk about toxic masculinity? Think of how many pent-up men there are out there.
I'm anti-ban everything anyway. I don't believe in bans. I don't believe in things being illegal. I just don't. Other than basic things like murdering people, the stuff that that you're
right.
Like, if a woman wants to sell her own body,
right,
to show this, who the fuck am I? If that's what she wants to do, if that's her way of making money, who am I? It would solve a lot of problems. You're right. It would solve a lot of problems, and then you could use the sin tax to fucking pay for healthcare, and it would pay for healthcare.
Yeah, that's why pot's doing so well.
Yeah, that's exactly why
people want that shit, and it's harmless for the most part.
For the most part, yeah. You get a little overweight, which is another thing. That's amazing. They're saying in 10 years, 30% of the world will be overweight.
That's amazing.
It's less harmful than, say, like alcohol.
No, that's definitely true. They've done plenty of studies. They know. Yeah. They know. It's just fucking controlling people, man.
I think it's just a society thing too, not just the control, because really there wouldn't be that much difference if you opened it up just like alcohol, right? Because you could control with alcohol as well, and that didn't work. But that marketing with the hemp stuff back in the day was so effective. It literally changed the public consciousness to think that this plant is so horrible. It's as bad as somebody who's doing heroin, and it ain't even close.
It's still it is. It's a, what is it? I forget what the levels are, but it's like the worst level drug you can be on.
Exactly, like felony, big time, end your life because you smoked pot.
Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah, but that's it is a weird tangent. I don't even know how to get back to where we are, but I don't care. They definitely have. It's because the hemp plant is so useful, though. That's why they did it, because they would, if that was legal and you could just grow wherever you wanted, like paper. You know how much paper you can make? People make shoes. Hippies make shoes out of hemp.
Right.
If a hippie can make shoes out of it, come on.
No, it tangented from if a woman wants to be a prostitute, like who are we to stop that? Because like that, if folk want to talk about toxic masculinity, part of it is because there's restrictions on how men can conduct themselves nowadays. Like as a 20-year-old who didn't have a girlfriend, how great would it have been if I could have just went down the street and paid $50 to like do my thing and like have that biological imperative satisfied. Instead, get angry and just start fist fights or whatever, or
it's true, man. When I think about that, right? When I think about my 20s and all the things that I could have done, instead I had my head up my ass chasing some chick.
Right, because you're just trying to get laid and you can't in some respect, in some cases.
Right.
And really know too much, right?
I was just gonna say, if that were the case, if we had access to going to prostitutes at a young age, that would make us the commodity eventually, because then women would have to act a certain way to make sure that they got us,
Good point.
So, so it would just kind of turn everything on its head,
Well, it still never would, because it still never would. And this is the distinction. This is why my wife doesn't understand. And this is what women never understand, and why women are sluts and men are not. Because you could say that we're a commodity, but it only takes one, and then they can keep making more of us. You only need one dude. They could put him in a fucking, and just have him keep busting nuts at women all day. And they could just keep pumping more out.
You got 100 women, right? Because you only ever need one guy.
Right. You only ever need one guy. That's the thing. So it will never be that way.
Right.
And so we're always, and so right there, we are always expendable. Women aren't. Right. Women are a valuable commodity. They're the ones you need when it all goes wrong.
Right.
Because a guy can replenish the earth again. One guy.
Right.
One woman, you're gonna have a hard time.
Yeah. Right. Because you got a bunch of dudes and few women. Months and months and months to turn that shit around.
Who's gonna hunt though while that guy's fucking though?
And you're gonna take care of that guy's kids? Yeah, I'm gonna hunt so you can feed your kids and nail that chick. Get out of here. Yeah, how about you go hunt and I'll nail your wife? But that's the thing is that at the end of the day, a woman gets to choose. The only way that a man can choose is if he lines up a bunch of women that have already chosen him, and then he picks which one he wants.
Hey, that sounds like an idea for a show.
Sounds like a game show, doesn't it?
Yeah. We could call it the Selector.
The Selector.
Well, no, that's strange dynamics. That comes from and that comes specifically to that. Women ultimately, at the end of the day, they are the one that decides, I'm going to have sex with this fucker right here. Right. And however you do it, however you circumvent their fucking anti-slut defense or whatever it is, you get around it. That's the guy. I want that cock. Right. But the dude is only going to get laid if somebody says, I want that cock. And what happens if she's that ugly girl? What happens is that girl that I talked about with my uncle, that, oh God, somebody got her pregnant. Then you really have to decide, man, do I, biological imperative, stuck with that for 19 years. You know what I mean? So you gotta really, right. You're jumping on a grenade. So the only way to avoid that is if you get a bunch of women that all decided that you're the one, and then you pick which one of them that you want. But what you need to do that in order to be the guy that has all these women picking them, you got to be the man. You can't be the Momo. You got to be the one that beats on his chest. So much so that, check this out, Scotty. I know Scotty read this article. I don't know if you did, Walt. They've done a study that shows that when men look at pictures of hot chicks, they want to eat red meat. They get cravings for red meat. Because, and the reasoning, they believe that the reasoning is evolutionary psychology, that the guy, the man, the male that had the biggest piece of meat, that was that badass. That was the guy that's going to step up and take care of his shit when it fucking came down. Look at the size of that fucking meat that guy's got. Then later on, when people stopped being fucking like animals and killing people and you had to be gentlemen buy stuff, who is the guy who got the big fucking steak? That rich fucker over there got that big fucking steak. How the fuck do you afford a steak like that? You see the size of that? You must be fucking rich. I wish I had a steak like that. I never even saw a steak like that. So again, it's a fucking status symbol.
Right.
Red meat shows that you're there. Not only the ability to pay for a giant thing like that, but the ability to, I killed it. I'm going to eat it. red meat shows so, and also red meat puts iron, gives you iron. Red meat in your is what helps you build your testosterone level, so you get fucking. The more you are, and what's more animalistic than fucking tearing off what you want and fucking riding the rest home?
Oh, shit. I didn't know red meat was. I didn't know. Like, so the iron has a factor in testosterone. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, something like that. It has something to do with of how it packs a man's muscle matter in a man, as opposed to and you can't produce muscle without testosterone.
Time to start eating more animals. We just had steaks tonight. I freaking ruined them though.
You overcooked them or something, or?
Yeah, I overcooked them. So one of the methods that I use is that you put like a pan in the oven.
Right.
The pan gets really hot, and when you throw the steaks on there, you can sear them on each side, but you still got the oven going. Well, I made the mistake of having it on the broil setting on the broil rack while I was searing them. Then when I took them out and put them on the thing, I underestimated their thickness, and I cooked them for almost twice as long on the broil.
Oh, man. It was like charcoal,
huh?
It was like charcoal then, huh?
Oh man, it was like shoe leather. It was like a little hot.
It sucks, man. Yeah, that's like I'm a red meat guy. Like I like it fucking. I'll eat that shit bloody. I like that shit.
Yeah, Jen wouldn't even eat it. She's like, here, you have this for lunch. I'll have these other leftovers. She just wouldn't eat it.
Yeah, I don't blame her. I that's one thing. Fucking, I don't understand people that eat, because I mean, technically, you cook the nutrients anyway. Obviously, you didn't mean to do this, but like there are fuckers that eat it like that on purpose.
Right.
And like, what are you even eating? What are you doing?
Well, you got to tell them if you overcook something, you start turning it into a way that's going to do you're going to get carcinogens from it.
Yep.
You can't overcook stuff, or you pollute your body.
Yeah. The ways they got rid of it times. Oh, I'm gonna cook. You want to eat that red meat? Eat that fucking eat that heart, man. That's a man. All the women look at him and say, "Oh man, look at me. He's gonna eat the heart. That guy got the heart. I want that guy."
Yeah, somebody's gonna like that.
Yep.
Somebody's gonna get a little moist watching that.
Yep. Yeah. The primeness of the cut of the meat, the choice cuts of the meat goes to the victor. So, since all the women want the victor,
right?
But
yeah, you can imagine like some old village back in the Stone Age, and it's a community, so it's a communal hunt, and you go out there and you kill that creature or whatever it is. But like the man, like the guy, he's gonna get the best bit, and there's some woman is going to observe, because he's going to know on the hunt what he accomplished.
Yep.
Like, I went in there and I grabbed that thing by the freaking whatever, pulled him to the ground and stabbed him in the back of the neck.
And there's always going to be that he gets his life. This life to that guy, right? Like he's the fucking greatest thing in the world, so that all the other women get him, and then he might get some scraps, so he doesn't have to work as hard as the beta males.
Right. There's a whole thing. Yep.
Yeah, he's
the modern society.
He's the hero's biographer.
Right.
Every hero has a biographer. You know why? You know how you know that, right? You know how you know every hero has a biographer? Because otherwise we would know about them.
Right.
Because he wasn't writing shit down.
No, he's out there doing shit.
He's taking care of business, bagging the chicks. I got to tell you guys about my buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He kills all the buffalo and he bags all the chicks.
Is that from something? Is that from year one or something like that?
No, that's just from our conversation.
Oh.
What were you saying? Did you see what?
Year one?
I didn't. I hate that Michael Cera kid. I can't stand him. I don't know how the fuck they get famous.
It was not a very good movie, but it was like it touches on concepts that you're talking about right now. Because like there's like big successful guy and like these two, they leave because basically they're not getting laid because they're just not alpha enough.
Well, that's I believe. See, so for me, at the heart of it, I think that's where all this this toxic masculinity comes from. I think it's a Momo fucking underpinnings. I think the Momos are trying to tunnel underneath us and pull the ground out from under us. They're trying to pull the hierarchy out.
Well, I told you about that family of some kind of apes or monkey or something like that, where basically the omega males who like sit back and don't even participate in any of like the like mating season type stuff where the males combat each other, and they sit back and they groom and brush and hang out with the females and ultimately end up stripping some of them, and like they're the ones that are sort of procreating, because then at the end of it, like the big alphas that come in, they come in to mate with these females, but they're already pregnant.
Yeah,
they don't know it.
Yep.
Proximity.
That's pretty much what's going on right now in society too. Yeah. It's you have the Momos are fucking taking over by calling everybody else as toxically male.
But the alphas still have to do what they've got to do. They still have to have the sheepdogs.
Well, even in those ones, they need the fucking crazy gorillas to come and fucking fed everybody off. Otherwise, thinking that they're the kids.
Right, because the other guys wouldn't be able to defend.
I don't know. I don't know where all this is going. I'm hoping that because they. Meanwhile, and I think we talked about this last week. They've proven that that the sciences, quote unquote, that come up with things like toxic masculinity are completely false. They're made up. It's false. It's all ideal under it. It's not real. There's no science behind it. It's like false. So you hope that in a few years, like, it comes out that this is all bullshit and they stop all this. But I don't know.
I don't know, man. I know that there are certain things that when you talk about and you put gender roles or things that like pigeonhole a certain people or gender or race or whatever, it's supposed to be unacceptable. But I have found that very freely there are people that talk about mansplaining and stuff like that and don't feel that there's any negative connotation to using that terminology.
It's relatively quick how it happened, though, because like you say, mansplaining. I never heard of mansplaining until Walt told me about mansplaining on this show. The first time I ever heard about mansplaining was one of the early episodes of this show. Walt brought up mansplaining. I was like, what the fuck is that? So that's how quick this stuff moves. Like now it's like part of the pantheon. Now it's in the like in the vernacular.
Right.
Mansplaining. Everybody knows what the fuck that is. How dare a
right now you can't say anything or you're mansplaining just because you're a male and manspreading.
Oh, that bullshit.
But you know what the problem is? You know whose fault this is, right? Like he said,
my mom.
It's the problem is that not enough dudes are saying, "Yo, fuck, enough of that shit. No more. I'm the sheepdog. No more. That's enough." Not enough dudes are saying, "Yo, cut it out."
Thing is, though, is I remember bringing it up with some of these people, and I found that I didn't necessarily have an appropriate defense. Like I was so ignorant of what mansplaining meant. I just like I need to be educated. How do I defend against somebody who uses that terminology?
But you have 8 people that are using it the same way you are. Right away, you're off balance because you're already thinking like, what the fuck? That word doesn't mean what you're saying that it means. But they're all saying it means the same thing, which already means that you're nuts because the group thing takes over. In that particular frame, they're all right because it doesn't matter what the dictionary says if nobody believes it.
Right.
And you're already off center because you're like, what the fuck? So your only defense in that, right, is like, no, I'm right, is to be a rock. The wind does not move the mountain.
I'm not even talking about if somebody says I'm trying to mansplain, but when it is just thrown out there. So it's not necessarily in my defense, where it's just out there as like being used as this terminology to like belittle something that, you know, that is most definitely, it only applies to men. What if I said, oh, you're, we had this issue come up. You're being hysterical because of the historic connotations of what, you know, hysterical stems from, like the hyster meaning, you know, and so that's not necessarily PC. So even if somebody is being hysterical, like, you don't use that terminology because, you know, it's not right. So just from the point of view of saying, like, don't use this term because it's just generally offensive. You're applying
it's a little bit.
Well, yeah, I won't go through that again. Like, we can always sort of retouch. It's just that it seems like mansplaining seems to be a very derogatory term because it's based on one's sex. Very much like hysterectomy is sort of fallen out of use because it's specific to women.
Yeah,
sorry, not hysterectomy, hysteric.
It's like, yeah, like to me, I don't know any other word to describe it. Right. To me, like, that's just, I've never lived at a point where where I've been in a context where that could upset somebody, that term. You know what I mean? It's something from a relic from a time before me to get upset by something by that terminology.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But I think most things that are out there, you have to really search hard and long to get upset by. But if you're in the business of getting upset and you are looking hard and long for things to get upset by, you will have no shortage of things to get upset by.
Yeah, you can always find something.
Yeah. See, this is an interesting thing that I learned earlier. I was learning today. So in a therapy setting, right? Essentially, you think of how things work, and everything is emergent from relationships and from interactions in relationships. So you think of our show, you see the three of us are on the show, and we interact a certain way every week. But then something comes up, and somebody doesn't like, Scotty doesn't like something that I do on the show, right? Scotty has a problem. It's actually Scotty's problem, though, right? Because you see something as a problem, but it wasn't a problem until you saw it as a problem. But if I don't see it as a problem, then I don't have a problem with it. It's not a problem for me. Now it's only a problem for you. So if it's not a problem for me, why would I fix it? You have to show me why you see it as a problem for me to even recognize it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's true to an extent because sometimes, you know, you could be oblivious to what it is that you're doing or saying that is going to be a problem for 80% of the people that are out there, right?
But that's most people.
Huh?
That's most people.
Right. So just because you don't recognize it doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't a problem. So sometimes when somebody notices something, it's because they're pointing out what could be an issue for other people.
Right. But if you're self-actualized and you don't care, and you don't have a problem with it, it doesn't, you know.
How about who's in charge of the memo to see that this gets out so that people can say, oh, okay, well, these are the rules now. And it never happens that way. So people, it kind of just, you notice how it kind of trickles down, like, or kind of, it's kind of like a wave, you know, and people eventually get those ripples, and then eventually it's like, oh, okay, well, this is unacceptable now. Well,
it's emergent. You know, it's emergent. It's what emerges as a result of a million different interactions every single day. That's what it is. And if that is specifically functionalism, that's what characterizes functionalism. Everything that exists because it works, and it stayed as long as it has, because it continued to work until it stops working. That something else emerges to take its place.
No, I mean, I think of stuff where like one time I said something about, this is like 10 years ago, like Oriental. And like somebody said, oh, you can't say that. I'm like, wait, what? I didn't get the memo on that. Or watching Seinfeld where somebody said something about a midget and the guy was like, we prefer little people. And I thought that was a joke. But as time went by, I realized like, no, you can't say midget anymore. They actually prefer the term little people. And I'm thinking to myself, to me, little people is more derogative than saying midget, but I'm not a little person. Right. So like I can't.
Okay.
So I think it stems from that kind of stuff. Like,
okay. So let's look at it this way, right? Let's look at that, right? That's a good example, right? So you keep saying midget, even though the little people prefer to be called little people. You don't see a problem with it, so you're not upset. So you just keep saying midget, right?
Yeah.
You don't bat an eye. It doesn't matter to you. What is the midget going to do?
But that's the thing, though. Like, but it changes the mind of society, so that then your peers will, ostracize you or whatever you want to call it. They will give pressure into saying that that's not acceptable. Right? We act the way that we do because of the groups that we are in dictate the type of behavior we should have.
Yes, but as also emergent by from our interactions. But now, okay, just from now, say that person that doesn't care that the little person wants to be called a little person, and he keeps calling them midgets because it doesn't matter to him. The only way that the little people can get him to see that it's a problem, right, is if they talk to him and say, hey, like that really hurts my feelings that you say that. And he cares that he hurts their feelings. And he says, and then it's still not that he sees that what the difference between little people and midget is. It's just that he's only doing it because saying it hurts their feelings, and he doesn't want to do that. Not because he thinks there's a problem with the term fucking midget. Right? He would keep saying midget otherwise, So you have to give him a certain amount of pain. You have to give him a certain amount of understanding that this is a problem. Because if you try a bunch of different ways to show him why you think it's a problem, and he still doesn't think it's a problem, he's not going to change what he's doing. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Tomorrow. And the next day, hey, look at a midget. You know what I mean? That's if he doesn't think it's a problem.
Right, it's true. And then it comes down to, okay, like how much does he value his relationship with this person? So like he could then break that off. And then if he values it more than like his not caring about it, then he might change. Otherwise he doesn't, and he moves on. But eventually that stuff trickles down. Like we don't say the N-word anymore. That's why I'm saying N-word, because even in this format, I won't say it because of that amount of connotation to it.
Yeah. Well, I have the same thing. I have a lot of people that I'm very close with that would be very offended and upset if they heard me use that term. So, and I just don't like it. To me, I don't think there's any reason to use it except if you're trying to piss somebody off. There's no reason to use it otherwise.
You know what the meanings are.
Right. Which is emergent over however many years.
Right.
It always comes down to that. What it really all comes down to, though, is how much do I need this fucking person? How much do I need you? Because if I don't need anybody, then I don't care what anybody says. I'm going to do what I want.
Or society, right? Because you could go live in a mountain somewhere and say, screw it, right?
Right. And that does not have any claim to what level of, like, you could be a bum. You could be a homeless guy, right? And because you're off the grid and society has nothing for you anyway, you're on the streets. What the fuck do you care what anybody says? You can do whatever you want.
Yeah. Nobody's going to call you out on it because at that point, you're not even worth making a stink about it because there's no loss to be incurred. That's why, like, some of this stuff makes the news. You get taken through,
the ringer.
Yeah, exactly. That was the word I was looking for. You get taken through the ringer, like when somebody reports something on the news about something you did or said, because that group says, we feel that this is going to be a severe punishment to you. You know, if I go out there and just start shouting the N-word in front of my house and somebody records it, you can guarantee that's hitting the national news, and my life would be over.
Yep. But I mean, rightfully so. I mean, that's part of how you progress things.
Right. That's how we live in a society. Right. And that's why I would not ever do such a thing.
But that's also why it's emerges. That's why everything you see can't be set up. It's not systematic that somebody is like Walt said, nobody's sending out the memo. Right. This is something we all decide together as we go, without realizing we're making that decision as we go. You know what I mean? It's not some guy writing down the fucking rules and saying, there they go, here's your 10 commandments, fuckers. Listen to them. Right. You're dead.
Right.
Yeah, it's more akin to a flock of birds flying.
Right, exactly. I don't even know how the fuck we got on there, where to go from there.
Well, we're probably hitting time at this point.
Yeah, it's 11:51. I think that we were on some good stuff there too, and I just completely lost it. I don't know. You have any last words?
Emergent behavior.
Emergent behavior. Yeah, it's true. That's why all of it, even the toxic masculinity, it's there because it worked.
It's true.
You just cut out for a second there. What happened?
Yeah, I'm waiting for him to let's see if. Yeah.
Oh, so he said his last words. I missed them.
No, I didn't. I was just waiting for you to talk because.
Shit, yo.
You were freezing and breaking up, John. So we may not have heard.
That's terrible. I was like, Walt, last words.
No, we didn't hear that.
we didn't hear that part. I'm just gonna say I am. One of these days, I'm probably gonna see Thaddeus on a milk carton. On the back of a milk carton because I don't know where he is, and I hope he comes back soon because I miss him. And he only lives not
he lives like 6 blocks away.
Yeah, so.
But it's definitely 6 minutes from where you are.
Yeah, I'll
absolutely.
But I hope he comes back soon.
Well, maybe next time we'll do an interview. Maybe next time we'll do an interview starring Thaddeus.
Yeah, where have you been? What have you been doing?
I'll just drag him over to my house, and he could just do it from here, with me on the couch, he could just do the show. What
projects you working on, Thaddeus? Anyway, so I don't know where that went, but I thought we were on some pretty good stuff at the end there. We'll try to see if we can pick up that where we left off, and maybe get into some more of those funny fucking news stories again. We'll see where we go from there. Cool. A little serious, and then go back into something some levity. For show number 50 would be our next one. Is going to be show number 50, so we got to think about what we want to do.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, let's think of something good to do for show number 50. I don't know what the fuck that's going to be. But anyway, check us out on SoundCloud and YouTube, Mad TMC, The Garage, and check out our books, The Mad Zone Presents, VPI, The Saga Begins, A Loaded Portrait, and The Beer Whisperer. Later, folks.
Good night.